If you're wondering what everyone's up to, let's go back a couple of weeks ago when a group of neighborhood kids planned their next adventure.
Let's explore China. How about Switzerland?
No, Germany.
Isn't this the greatest rock collection? This is my favorite rock. That's from Eastern Oregon.
Oregon might be fun to explore.
No. What about New York?
That sounds exciting.
Isn't this an unusual rock? Is it from New York? I don't know. Maria added it to our collection.
My science teacher gave me this.
Looks like granite.
It is. Did you know there's a granite cliff nearly 1 mile high in Yosemite National Park?
Yosemite National Park? Hey, why don't we explore national parks?
That's a different idea.
That could be interesting.
What's a national park?
If you like rocks and trees and lakes and mountains with a touch of snow, national parks have all of these things and they're a natural place to go. But all the information you can find for yourself and it's waiting in a row on the library shelf. So if you want to know a little bit more, take a look in a book.
To find out what you want.
Just take a look in a book.
Maps and charts.
Take a look in a book.
Lots of information.
We're looking up national parks. If you take a trip to a national park, what's the natural thing to do? You can hike, you can bike, you can travel on the water in a boat or canoe. And don't forget your tent or your boots or your lights. You can climb up a mountain, you can camp overnight. Hey, if you want to know a little bit more, take a look in a book. Just take a look in a book. Take a look in a book. We're looking up national parks.
Hey, look. Trees turned into stone at Petrified Forest. Wow, Crystal Caves at Sequoia Kings Canyon Park.
You can ride a horse through a wonderland at Bryce.
Get a load of this. Can you believe it? An underwater park at Biscayne. Even a park that looks like the moon at Sunset Crater Park.
A national park is a beautiful place. It's there for everyone to share. So what can we do to keep the beauty alive while we're visiting there? Don't pick the flowers, carry out your trash. When you hike through the park, please stay on the path. And if you'd like to know a little bit more, take a look in a book. Just take a look in a book. Take a look in a book. We're looking up national parks. We're looking up national parks.
Well, what do you think? Should we explore national parks?
Sounds like a great idea to me. Me too.
There's so many national parks all over the world.
We could cover more than one. Maybe one person in each park.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
So everyone decides to investigate a different national park.
So where are we going to go for our vacation?
I don't know. I haven't decided.
We've never been to the Olympic National Park before. Can we go?
Well, that's not too far.
Does that mean we can go?
Maybe.
Does maybe mean yes? Oh, come on, Dad. It'll be fun.
All right, all right. I'm convinced. But let's ask your mother first, all right?
All right. I hope she says yes.
And Allie and Nick decide to take a day trip to Fort Vancouver National Park.
How about Yellowstone National Park?
Too far.
Well, what park's near here?
There's a national park a couple of hours from here. I went there when I was a kid.
I think you're dreaming again, Nick.
No, it's true. And it has a fort.
A fort? Didn't we study about that in school?
Yeah. It's called Fort Vancouver National Historic Site.
Oh, yeah. Maybe my mom will take us there.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Maria persuades her mom to contact her friends at Yosemite National Park and arrange for her to
I'll
visit.
let you know when the train comes in. Right. Bye.
So I'm really going to Yosemite National Park?
Yes.
Thanks, Mom.
After arriving at the park,
Hi, Maria.
Maria meets her mom's best friend, who just happens to be a ranger at Yosemite National Park.
Well, you're out for a tour of the park this afternoon?
Sure.
Oh, good. I'm taking a group of junior rangers around the park.
What are junior rangers?
Junior rangers are kids your age who like to study nature.
I like to study nature. Guess I'll be a junior ranger for a day. Sounds like fun. Yosemite National Park is located in the Sierra Nevada mountain range that runs northwest and southeast through California. The park is so big that it's hard to decide where to go first. Luckily today, I'm following a ranger who's deciding for me.
If you look up this way here, you'll see Indian Canyon up in here. This is 3,000 feet above the valley floor.
Wow, that's incredible. How did Yosemite get that way?
Over millions of years, there are many changes that...
The ranger told me that about 10 million years ago, Yosemite was just a wide valley with a river running through it. But over millions of years, fast-moving rivers and streams changed the shape of the land. The streams ran through the hills and washed away the soil. When water keeps washing away land like this, it's called erosion. Erosion made the Yosemite Valley become deeper and deeper. I followed the tour group to another part of the park. I wondered how the huge cliffs came about, but soon found out that long ago, during what was called the Ice Ages, North America was covered with ice, huge hunks of ice called glaciers. The ice moved like a slow river. It was so big and heavy that it scraped away the rocks and soft soil. At Yosemite National Park, it left the hillsides and cliffs like they are now. These cliffs are made of rock called granite. Many statues in our parks are granite rock. Granite was formed inside the earth a long time ago. Lots of people like to climb these cliffs, but climbing is very difficult. It takes years of training and experience to be a rock climber. I guess I'll leave climbing to the experts. Later that afternoon, while my ranger friend was giving a lecture, I took a stagecoach ride and checked out the Indian village. Whoa, this is neat. Sure is different from the way we live today. The Indians were the first people to come to the Yosemite Valley. They found almost everything they needed to live on in this valley. They used acorns and other plants for food, and animals for meat and skins. Their Indian houses were covered with cedar bark to keep the rain out. As I walked around the garden near the village, I saw many plants used by the Indians in the past. They made their homes, baskets, food, and medicine from plants. After visiting the Indian village, I went to meet the ranger at the visitor center. When you go to any national park, you should always stop at the visitor center. You can get a park newspaper that lists many things for you to do in all parts of the park. You can also see a slideshow that tells all about the park. Wow! Look at all these souvenirs. Allie and Nick would like these. This is perfect for Tyson. This looks neat. I'll get this for Brooke.
Well, looks like you're buying at the store.
Well, just a few things for my friends.
Now remember, you want to save some of your money. You'll be here for a whole weekend.
Well, okay, I'll take everything but these two. I hope Tyson and Brooke get my letter before they leave for Olympic National Park.
Who's it from? Maria. What's it say?
It says, "Dear friends, I haven't had time to develop my pictures, so I drew some pictures of some of the places I wanted to share with you." This first picture looks like a waterfall. Maria wrote that Yosemite has the 5th highest waterfall in the world. It's 2,425 feet high.
That's tall.
This picture is definitely a tree. It says there are forests in Yosemite where giant sequoia trees grow. These trees are thousands of years old. To walk around some of them, you have to take 50 giant steps.
1, 2, 3, 4, 50 giant steps. Those trees must be huge.
They're huge, all right, and they have thick bark that doesn't burn easily. But many trees in the forest can burn, so we should always be careful with fires in the forest.
Remember, only you can help prevent forest fires.
Let me guess, Smokey Bear?
Yep.
Not bad. Hey, look at this picture. It's a meadow. There are cliffs, valleys, waterfalls, forests, and meadows at this park. The meadows are at the bottom of the valleys. There are many different plants and animals who live here. Maria goes on to say some interesting things she found out about other parks. She says the Grand Canyon was formed by the Colorado River. Over millions of years ago, this river washed away the soil and cut deeper and deeper into the earth, making the incredibly deep Grand Canyon. You can ride a mule right down into the canyon.
A mule? That sounds like fun. What else does she say?
Let's see, there's another park in the state of Wyoming called the Grand Teton National Park. In the meadows, you can see deer, elk, and pronghorn antelope that live there. In the wet areas by a river called the Snake River, you might see moose, beavers, and many kinds of birds. Above them all are the beautiful and rugged Teton Mountains.
I'd sure like to visit that park.
Me too, but listen to this. A park called Zion National Park in the state of Utah has big rock walls.
Big rock walls?
Yeah, over millions of years, water cut through the ground, leaving these high walls. One place here is called Weeping Rock because water comes right through the rock and drips down.
Just like it's crying tears.
Uh-huh. There's also a canyon here called the Narrows. One part is so narrow you have to wade through the creek in the canyon to get through.
That would be fun.
There's one more park Maria wrote about. In the state of Montana, you can visit another park that was created by glaciers, Glacier National Park. There are dozens of glaciers, over 650 lakes, and miles of trails so you can hike in the wilderness. One of the world's largest bears live there, the huge grizzly bear.
I'd sure like to see one.
Me too, as long as we're a safe distance away.
Right.
At the end of the letter, Maria says there's so many neat things you can explore at a national park. I hope you get to visit one and see how fantastic it is. Your friend, Maria.
And we will, because we're on our way to see one right now. I wonder what Nick and Allie are doing.
There it is. Things sure have changed since the 1800s.
Fort Vancouver National Historic Site is located in the state of Washington, next to the Columbia River. But what we're looking at isn't the real fort, it's a copy of the original one, built almost 150 years ago by the British. The United States did not own this part of America in those days. Fort Vancouver was named after a British explorer.
Look at that fence.
I sure wouldn't want to climb that.
Let's go inside this way.
Okay. Fort Vancouver might look like a military fort, but it's not. These high parts are called stockades, and they have cannons inside. They were built to protect the fort from theft. In fact, the cannons were only used to fire salutes to arriving ships. The fort gave the people who lived here a safe place to live and work.
There's Dr. John McLaughlin's house.
He ran the fort. Come on!
Okay. Wow, this is neat.
Here's the kids' room.
Everything looks so small.
I know. Let's go look at the rest of the house.
Okay.
Come on. This is where they ate.
It's huge. John McLaughlin was very kind to people who visited the fort. He would lend the visitors company tools and livestock, and even let them stay at his house.
I wonder why he built this fort here.
Remember what we read coming over here in the car?
Kinda.
People came to the Northwest in the 1840s because there were many animals. Some of the animal skins were very valuable, like the beaver skin. Beavers are animals who built dams from trees they cut down with their teeth. Anyway, back in those days, wearing fur coats and hats made from beaver hair was very popular. So Fort Vancouver became the most important fur trading post in the Northwest. The native Indians and men called trappers trapped beavers and other animals. There were very few roads back then because the Northwest was wild and had very few people. So they brought the furs to the fort on boats that they paddled down the Columbia River. Here, at Fort Vancouver, they traded their furs for things they needed.
Let's check out some of the other buildings.
Good idea.
Come on! The kitchen was in a separate building near John McLaughlin's house. It was big enough to feed a lot of people. In those days, the kitchen wasn't the only thing that was outside the house, so were the bathrooms.
This fort has everything.
Look at the tools!
In the old days, tools were made by a man called a blacksmith. I'm hungry.
I know just the place to take you. Come on!
Looks like a bakery.
It is. Just smell.
Smells delicious.
Maybe we'll get to taste some.
Yeah, that's what I want.
This is the store where the Indians traded their goods.
I know what they traded their skins for.
What?
For supplies like blankets and food.
And beads and tools.
Yeah.
This sure is different from the stores we have today.
There's the garden. They grew enough food to feed everyone living at the fort. and even the trappers working up in the mountains. Do you want to know what happened to the fort?
Sure.
In 1866, the fort burnt down, and that's why it was rebuilt to look like this today.
What a story.
This is some fort.
There sure is a lot of history behind this place.
And Fort Vancouver isn't the only national park with a lot of history.
There are many parks in the United States that are historical parks. For instance, on the East Coast, there are Civil War battlefield parks like Gettysburg, where there are big statues and monuments. The Civil War took place in the United States. It was a terrible war where Americans fought Americans. People come every year and act out what life was like for the soldiers back then. There's a park in Minnesota called Voyageurs National Park. After the French Canadians who paddled canoes and traded furs here in the 1800s, they could paddle up to 16 hours a day. They had to because this park can only be reached by water. Its islands are surrounded by water. The Voyageurs used to go to a nearby fort called Grand Portage. It's been rebuilt so you can go visit the kitchen, Great Hall, and the canoe warehouse. There's a special place called Mount Rushmore, where the history is carved in a rock. It's a national memorial, and 4 presidents' faces are carved into the mountain: Teddy Roosevelt, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson. The carvings are so big, one of the president's noses is as big as a car.
As big as a car? That's huge. Historical parks sure are interesting.
I wonder what Brooke and Tyson have discovered about the park they're exploring.
The Olympic National Park is located in the state of Washington. It's in the middle of a place called the Olympic Mountains. There sure are a lot of mountains here. This park has over 600 miles of hiking trails, besides lakes for boating and fishing, places to camp like this, and lots of beautiful scenery and animals to see.
The Olympic National Park is 3 parks in one. It has high mountains, rainforest, and a seashore. Speaking of a seashore, what are we waiting for? Let's go.
Want to go to the beach?
Sure.
Dad, can we go to the beach?
I don't see why not. Sure.
Let's go get ready.
Okay.
We walked ahead of our dad, investigating everything in sight. The Olympic National Park seashore is one of the longest and wildest in the United States.
Wildest?
Yeah, there are only rocks, birds, and driftwood on this beach. No hotels, restaurants, or video arcades.
Then what is there to do?
Well, at the beach you can walk on the sand and play tag with the waves. But keep an eye on the waves, especially during storms. The waves throw big logs up on the beach. These logs might be fun to play on, but never go near them when they're in the water. The waves could make them roll over on you. You can find many birds along the seashore who depend on the ocean for their food. Some of the birds are seagulls, sandpipers, bald eagles, and cormorants. Cormorants are great fishers. They dive into the water to get their food. After a lot of dives, they spread their wings to dry their feathers.
Look at me!
You look like a bird drying its feathers.
That's who I am.
Well, I'm hunting for food, just like the Indians used to do.
I'll hunt too.
Come on. Many years ago, only the North Coast Indians used to live here. The Indians respected the land and the creatures that lived here and took only what they needed to live on. They hunted in boats for food in the sea. They lived in houses made of wood on land and made totems and masks. The Indians also found food along the shore like clams and mussels. right, a tide pool. What's a tide pool? Tide pools are pockets of water that can be found among the rocks on the ocean shore. Every 12 hours, the ocean goes in and out, so it covers and uncovers the rocks. When the ocean goes out, it's called low tide. This is a good time to check out the tide pools. You'll find tiny creatures like crabs, starfish, mussels, and sea anemones in these pools. Hey, there's a starfish! Where? Right there. I wonder where it gets its food. When the ocean covers the tide pool, it's called high tide. Along with the tide comes food that the sea creatures eat, like tiny plants and organisms that are delicious, at least to mussels.
Kids, lunchtime.
Lunchtime! Good, I'm starved.
Nick!
Over here,
What are you doing back in here?
watching them cook.
Do you think kids were allowed to help out in the kitchen during the olden days?
I don't know.
Be careful with that knife.
I will. This is going to be delicious. During the 1800s, mostly girls worked in the kitchen. But at Fort Vancouver, men did most of the cooking.
Now remember, when you're kneading the bread, you want to work it very, very hard.
Okay.
Girls helped the men by washing dishes, stirring the soup, doing the laundry, and cleaning. The list of chores were endless. By the time a girl was 14 or 15, she was ready to marry.
Boys helped their fathers with chores. They split wood and brought it into the house, built fences, cleared land, and there was always the garden.
Now always be careful when firing a gun, my son.
Okay, Dad, I will. By the time a boy was 8 or 9, he knew how to use a rifle and hunt wild game for meat. Although kids did a lot of chores in the olden days, they still had fun.
School was different in the 1800s for children living at Fort Vancouver. Not all children went to school. Officers who could afford it sent their sons to schools away from home.
Unbutton your next button. Let me check you with my stethoscope.
If you were sick, a visit to the doctor was very different from what we experience today.
I have just the medicine for you. I'm afraid you won't like the taste.
This doctor's office sure looks strange.
Yeah, say that again.
Come on, let's go to the next room.
Okay. Look at this bed. How can someone get well on something hard like this?
These are hard. Imagine what it'd be like to be a kid in the olden days.
I'm glad I didn't live there.
Me too.
Can we go for a hike? No, let's go for a drive. A hike. No, a drive. A hike.
How about a hike and a drive?
All right, let's go get our hiking gear on. As we drove up Hurricane Ridge Road, we could see how different plants grow. Near the bottom of the ridge, the trees are larger. Higher up, where it's windy and cold, trees are smaller. And even the plants grow real close to the ground. Animals who like cold, high places live here too. Like plant-eating marmots, who are very funny to watch. I can see the mountains. They're incredible. Did you know that mountains change? Of course I know. What else do you know? The rocks on the mountains are worn away by plants, rain, snow, and ice.
Right, and millions of years ago, during what was called the Ice Age, over 1/3 of the United States was covered with ice, huge chunks of ice called glaciers. This ice was so big and heavy that it scraped away the rocks and soft soil, leaving the mountains we're looking at right now. Today there are about 60 medium-sized glaciers, very high up on the mountain peaks, still at work changing the shape of the Olympic Mountains. Mountain climbers climb these icy and rocky mountains just for the thrill of getting to the top. Here they can see other mountains from places very few people go.
Just thinking about climbing this mountain makes my feet ache. Me too. But I'm ready for the hike. Off to the rainforest. Hop, 2, 3, 4. Hiking, hiking. Let's go on a hike. Hiking, hiking. Let's go on a hike.
Don't go out of my sight.
Okay.
It sure rains a lot here. Sometimes it rains as much as 12 feet a year. That's why it's called a rainforest. Rainforests have plants and animals that only like to live here. Big plants which need lots of water, like these ferns, are everywhere.
What's this stuff? That stuff's moss. I remember reading from a book that moss gets its food and water from the air.
From the air? Wow! This tree looks old.
Some of the trees that live in this rainforest are very old, 500 years old. Here's a weird tree. It's called a Sitka tree and has big bumps called burls. The ground here is soft and soaks up water like a sponge. Since there's so much water on the ground, the tree's roots don't go very deep. So when there's a storm, it's easy to blow down these trees. But luckily, the tree stumps become places for new trees and plants to grow, right on the logs and stumps. When this happens, the logs are called nursery logs.
After a day of hiking, it sure felt good to hit the sack. Not to mention playing in the tent before dozing off.
The Olympic National Park sure is neat. It has mountains, seashores, and forests. In each area, different plants and animals live together and depend on each other. There are many national parks like this that my dad told me about. The Everglades National Park in Florida is one. You can walk on a path through a subtropical wilderness. There are swamps filled with birds catching fish dinners. Over 300 kinds of birds. There are over 700 kinds of tropical plants and all kinds of animals, even alligators. They need wetlands, like those in this park, to find food to live. It's been a great 2 weeks, but this is my last day at Yosemite National Park. Althea and I packed a picnic lunch and took off to enjoy the day. What a great place to have a picnic.
It's beautiful here, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, I've been meaning to ask you, what's it like being a park ranger?
You know, it's an exciting job. You get to work in the out of doors. You work with people from all over the world. You get a chance to see wildlife.
What's the most difficult thing about being a park ranger?
The most difficult thing is seeing park visitors feed wildlife. And by feeding wildlife, they get used to people, and then they're not wild anymore.
What do you have to do to become a park ranger?
Well, I would think you would go to college and get a degree in environmental studies or some related field that deals with nature. I would think kids should visit national parks and try to read books on nature and try to get an understanding of what nature is.
I want to be a ranger when I grow up.
Oh, that's great. It's a lot of fun.
At the end of the day, I headed back home, and to pass the time away, I thought about my friends. They were probably heading home too, and thinking about the adventures they had at a national park.
Visiting a national park is an incredible experience, especially if you can go there in person. Here are some parks you might want to visit. Yellowstone National Park is so big that it's in 3 states: Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. It's an amazing place with boiling hot springs and mud pits and geysers that shoot up into the air. Yellowstone was America's first park. We can say thanks to those early people who saved this park for us to have today. There's a national park in North Carolina and Tennessee that has some 10 million visitors each year. The Great Smoky Mountains. They aren't really smoky. Believe it or not, it's the moisture from all the plants that creates the smoky look. It has old cabins, churches, and barns that you can explore. The Smoky Mountains are some of the oldest mountains on Earth. There's even parks which are underground, like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. It has more than 330 miles of caves. You can actually go down into these caves and look at all the unusual shapes. It's kind of spooky down there, but really beautiful. I could go on for hours telling you about more than 370 national park areas, but it's more fun to go there than to just hear me talk about it.
If you like rocks and trees and lakes and mountains with a touch of snow, national parks have all of these things and they're a natural place to go. But all the information you can find for yourself, and it's waiting in a row on the library shelf. So if you want to know a little bit more, take a look in a book.
To find out what you want,